There are millions of people in the United States today that have serious tax problems. Whether you owe 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, or 100,000 plus, the worst thing that you could do is ignore it. I understand it's embarrassing, it's frightening, it's one of the worst things that could happen to you. But ignoring it is not a valid strategy. Welcome to How to Win Big at Business. My name is Joe DiChiara. I am a CPA for over 40 years. I'm also an entrepreneur that has handled thousands of different types of tax problems, from collection cases to audits, some criminal investigations, offers and compromise, penalty abatements, and just simply answering tax notices. I've done thousands of them. And believe you me, ignoring the problem, it is not going away. The IRS or even the state, the government's simply not going away. And in fact, if you're ignoring it, it's going to get worse. Most people today know that the IRS is broken. They've been underfunded, understaffed for decades, for as long as I've been an accountant, and that's over 4 decades. When COVID hit, it totally decimated them. When Donald Trump got reelected again, instead of Joe Biden's plan to hire 80,000 representatives, Trump let over 20,000 of them go. That's 100,000 person swing. So not only were they decimated because of COVID, the fact that employees couldn't even go to work, the government was no different than private businesses. And now they were strapped with having to send their employees home. The systems have been breaking down. To be honest with you, I have a very strong suspicion that the IRS's computers have been hacked in a major way. The other issue is the fact that the government wants the money. Back in 2007, the GAO did a study, and what they call the tax gap. The tax gap is the amount the IRS believes that it's owed against the amount that they have collected. The tax gap in 2007, almost 20 years ago, was over $300 billion. The other big issue is the fact that within 6 years, the Social Security Fund is going to run out of money unless something drastic is gonna happen. Now, for a politician to run on raising taxes is the end of their career. So I have never seen any politician advocate for raising taxes. So that option is very unattractive. If you think about over 20 years ago, the tax gap was over $300 billion. Think about what it probably is today. I wouldn't be surprised if it's close to $1 trillion, because the fact is that there are more and more businesses. COVID created the great resignation. Over 4 million people didn't go back to work. Many of them started businesses, and they're very small businesses. And those businesses are the most likely to underreport their income, overreport their expenses, or simply not even file. That's a fact. So, in my opinion, the most logical solution for the government and the state and local governments is to enforce collection action. That was what President Biden's solution was. That's why they were going to hire 80,000 people. And trust me, it wasn't 80,000 admin people. They weren't hiring 80,000 people to answer the phone. They were hiring 80,000 people, most of which were going to be in the collection process. Now, once Donald Trump is out of office, the only logical step is for them to update their systems, hire more people. They're already using AI to match people that owe money with where their money is. They're instituting new programs, for instance, S corporation owners that have little or no salary, and the gig economy, where a lot of people are making money and flying under the radar. So this is why I've decided to spend the next 12 episodes specifically on resolving tax problems. So let's take it step by step. So when we talk about tax problems, there's all different types of tax problems. Primarily, it's the fact that you owe money and you're not paying it, whether you have the ability to pay or don't have the ability to pay. In the end, every tax issue winds up with an amount due. Other types of tax problems are the unfiled returns. Well, most of the time, returns aren't filed because the individual knows that they're going to owe money, or they just can't find an accountant that's good enough or competent enough or affordable enough for them to hire. The other thing is most, not most, but millions, to actually tens of millions of individuals prepare their own taxes. That includes small business owners. Preparing tax returns is hard enough for experienced professionals. It's not easy, from gathering the information to keeping up with new tax laws. And when there is an issue, and it's not if there's an issue with even a regular tax practice, a regular tax practice like mine, where we service basically mostly self-employed professional. It's the number of issues, including a lot of IRS problems, can only be resolved by getting on the phone with them, getting a power of attorney, getting on the phone with them. And if you've tried getting on the phone with them recently, that it's a long shot. 90% of the time, you're not getting through. I had a case last week where I was literally on hold for over 4 hours. Now, that included a stretch of 45 minutes where they actually picked up. I was having a conversation with the representative, going all through the identification process. A coworker interrupted him and asked him a question. He stopped to answer, and then the phone went blank. It went dead. He either hung up on me or accidentally hung up on me. I had to get back on the phone and I was on hold for an additional 2 hours until I finally got through. Now I had to get through because they were threatening to levy my client's bank account. We had already negotiated an installment agreement, but the agent recommended that we file a Form 433D. And that what that is, it's a form to initiate electronic debits, ACH, from my client's bank account. And the reason, and this was logical, she said, you don't want to mail a check in because number one, it takes them forever to open the mail. Number two is there's a chance, a good chance, that the letter will never get there. You see, it's not only the IRS has issues, the United States Post Office has issues. So when you mail in a return or a check, even if you have certified return receipt, it's not going to help you because if that check doesn't get processed right away, a letter is going to go out basically saying you're in default of your installment agreement. So I believed her. So that required the ACH electronic withdrawal system to protect my client. No, let's say before COVID, okay, getting something like that done would not require such a strenuous effort. Now, that was when it became extremely required that we get this done. I had been trying for weeks to get on the phone with them. So, long story short, if you have a problem, if you have a business and there's a problem, getting it resolved is going to be very time consuming and difficult in a way that it's never been in the 40 years that I've been an accountant. So let this first tax resolution episode be about what do you do when you owe the IRS money? So I've already started by explaining ignoring the problem is not a solution because it's only going to get worse. It can only get worse. And their collection efforts are going to become more prevalent. It's going to be harder to fly under the radar. So here's what we do. The first thing that you need to do is not panic. I understand it's emotional, it's stressful, it's what am I going to do? You don't know how to solve this problem. But panicking is not going to result in a solution. And you want a solution, and there are solutions no matter where you are on the scale of is this like an annoying problem? Like, okay, I know I got to pay this. I'll eventually I'll have the money. I just don't want them to bother me. Two, you can't even open up a bank account because they're tracking you. If you get a job, they're going to withhold your wages. No matter what the situation is, panicking is not going to help. Number two, you got to determine exactly how much you owe. Just because the IRS gives you an amount doesn't mean that it's written in stone. There's been plenty of times where the IRS was saying my client owed X and it turned out to be Y. There's a program that if somebody doesn't file a return and there's third party information, for instance, a W-2, 1099s, any payment or asset information, they're going to eventually levy your account. So if you haven't filed, what they're going to do, they're going to take that third party information and file for you. And they're going to do it in the worst possible way. They're not going to give you any itemized deduction. They're not going to give you any tax credits you may or may not be entitled to. When they do that, there's a chance, a good chance, that the amount you owe is going to go down. And all you have to do is file the missing return. So before you can do that, you need to determine exactly how much you owe. Now, we strongly, and there's chatter out there that the IRS is going to require individuals to open up an account at irs.gov. We pretty much insist that clients, especially clients that are getting notices, open an account because the only way to see exactly what information the IRS has is to get copies of your transcripts. And there's several different types of transcripts. What you want is the wage and income transcript, because what that's going to show is all the income that's been reported, and your record of account, which is also going to include the status of any filings, if there's been liens filed, if there's been levies filed. So that is steps. Don't panic. Ascertain exactly how much you owe and that all the returns that you have filed have been processed. You see, that's another issue that's come up a lot. Just because you filed a return doesn't mean it's been processed. And that even means returns that have been electronically filed and accepted. I had a case with a client. We filed three unfiled returns. I filed them electronically. They were all accepted. And then he was going for a bank loan. And according to the IRS, none of the returns were filed. It took me 6 months because I had to escalate it to the taxpayer advocate. And we're going to talk all about what the taxpayer advocate's job is. And it never took that long. And the explanation that the taxpayer advocate gave me was unacceptable. What he said was just because it was accepted doesn't mean it was processed. Another thing, another point you have to understand is if you do get on the phone with an agent, don't rely on the information that they give you, because I believe what's happened, and this comes from a very close person that I've known for basically my whole life, that worked at the IRS for over 20 years. When they hire somebody, you don't just get hired and get access to all of the tax data. You got to go through training. You got to be approved. So, in an effort to try to get those phone calls answered, the IRS hired a lot of people that work from home that simply don't have the clearance. They don't have access. What they might tell you, they might be able to say, oh, your return's being processed. And that's it. They're not giving you any solution. And a lot of times, I have personally been given wrong information. So wrong, where I asked the agent, where are you getting this information from? Because I guarantee you it's wrong. I have the tax transcripts right in front of me, and you're wrong. A lot of times, what we've had to do is get off the phone with the agent and actually call again and get another agent. Just because you get through to an agent doesn't mean you're going to have a resolution. So it's become a major problem for everyone, especially accountants. I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups with tens of thousands of accountants, and this is the norm. This is the norm. When one of us actually gets through to the IRS and has a resolution, it's like a party. It's like, hey, I got through, and I actually got an agent that could help me. But let's go through the next couple of steps. You got to ascertain if all the returns not only filed but processed. Okay, extremely important. Number five, where are you in the collection process? Or did you just get your first notice? Are you getting a notice of intent to levy? Because there's a cycle. First, you get a notice, then you get another notice, and you have to ascertain, is this something that I just have to respond to? Or is this something where I need to get a professional involved, get a power of attorney, and get them on the phone to either put the collection process on hold, which is possible, or create an installment agreement. But if you're that far down the journey, you need to act quickly. And no matter where you are, if you did get a notice, if you owe them money, you need to take action. Okay. Number six, what resources do you have? Depending, once you ascertain how much you owe, are you going to be able to pay? Here's the five basic outcomes. You pay the amount due, you come out with an installment agreement, a payment arrangement, you settle it, which is a lot of times that's what they call an offer and compromise. You settle for pennies on the dollar, and you have to qualify. You have to show that you'll never be able to pay this amount due, no matter how long it is. It's seriously affecting your life, and you can settle for pennies on the dollar. I've done plenty of those, but you have to have the right circumstances. Temporarily delay collection. I mentioned this. Put the collection process on hold. There, if you have a personal situation, there was a medical problem, a natural disaster. When COVID hit, the collection process went on the side. Okay. And last but not least, challenge the amount that you owe. Like I said in the beginning, just because the IRS says you owe money doesn't mean that the amount that they're looking for is correct. Also, you have to remember that they're adding penalties and interest. Sometimes the penalties can be abated, especially if it's for late filing. And here's how I'm going to close. The right solution, and there's always a solution, maybe not the solution that you want, but the final resolution is going to depend on a couple of things. Number one, what is the problem? How bad it is, how much is actually owed, and your personal situation. Are you going to be able to pay? Are you going to be able to pay at a later date? Do you have assets that can be sold? Unfortunately, sometimes that's the best solution. I have a client right now, serious issue, multiple years of unfiled returns. He got scammed by one of these big tax resolution firms, which is another thing. Be careful. Be careful of all these big outfits. Some of them are scams. Some of them take on more cases than they can handle. So just be careful with those situations. Okay, so it's gonna depend on your personal situation. Okay. Now, here's the thing. The IRS is the biggest collection agency in the world. They put the fear of life into people unnecessarily. Because here's the truth. They are portrayed as the big bad wolf. But the truth is that they have tens of thousands of individuals whose job it is to resolve the issue. As long as you're working with them, as long as you're contacting them, you're giving them the information that they're asking for, they're not so bad. They're really not so bad. Like I said, I've had a very close individual that had been working for the IRS over 20 years, and that was her job, not to put them into, oh, we're going to send them to the criminal division. That's not her job. Her job was to ascertain what the situation was and try to help the individual resolve the problem in a manner that matched their ability to pay. That's my story, folks. I'm sticking with it. Welcome to How to Win Big at Business. If you're not in business but do have tax issues, you're in the right place. I am going to devote at least the next 3 months offering solutions to the biggest tax problems that there are. If anything I've said resonates with you, like the podcast, download it. It helps spread the word, and that's what I want to do. I want to get the word out there to help business owners and individuals that might have issues with the tax department, federal or state. That's my story. I'm sticking with it, folks. God bless, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.